Trish Bodie,
Here.
Gloria Gonzalez de Lucchia,
Here.
Anna Smith,
Here.
Sade Fashikun, Paul Gauthier,
Here.
Christine Maurer,
Here.
Francesca Romans.
Here. All right, with a quorum of the board present, I declare our June 15th regular meeting to order. We will start this evening on the next item of our agenda, our opening ceremony, our Pledge of Allegiance. And as Avani walks up here, I will introduce her to y'all. It is my pleasure to introduce Avani Handy Bosma to lead us in the pledges tonight. Avani is a proud graduate and with honors from the 2023 class of Leander High School. Avani was a member of the National Honor Society and is a Texas scholar who is deeply committed to academics and the idea of lifetime learning. She was also a proud member and supporter of the LHS Band and says she's benefited greatly from her membership in the LHS Black Heritage Club and student government. A frequent visitor to our LISD board meetings, Avani takes a special interest in educational policy and student voice. She also enjoys volunteering at local pet shelters and participating in church missions to various places in Texas to serve underprivileged people. Avani will be attending the University of Texas at Austin and majoring in radio, television, film. She hopes to help people find their own voice and tell their individual stories. Well done, Avani.
Please stand with me and join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisibility and justice for all. Please remain standing for the Texas Pledge. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
If you'll please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you.
All right, and for our audience here and online and our board members, believe it or not, even though it's summer, we still have an amazing recognition list coming up. And so we now will go to our video of recognition of all the amazing academic and extracurricular activities going on in the district.
With great pride, Leander ISD is honored to commemorate these extraordinary students, as well as their dedicated teachers, coaches, and mentors for their exceptional accomplishments. In the area of career and technical education, LISD students continued to excel in state-level competitions. The high school journalism departments in LISD feature robust programs for broadcast, yearbook, and newspapers. Let's take a closer look at the wide spectrum of recognition these programs received throughout the year. For broadcast, the Interscholastic League Press Conference recognized the following students from Rouse High School. Autumn Rogers for first place in show introduction. The duo of Jonah Drum and John Simmons for second place in daily announcements. Anastasia Grigorivia placed third in feature story, and then Anastasia and Autumn teamed up for third place in documentary. At Cedar Park High School, the Wolfcast broadcast team took home a silver star, representing the top 10% in Texas. The Wolfcast also featured the Producer of the Year for Texas, regardless of size or division, Abby Martinez. Other top 3 honors for the Wolfcast included first places to the anchor team for individual anchor and for news writing, and to Abby Martinez for feature story. Second place finishes included Abby for individual anchor, Reagan for news story, Katie Whitmarsh for sports story, Jack Polishuk for special coverage, and the duo of Ryan Green and Reed Cummins for graphics. Anthony Luparello pulled in a trio of third-place finishes in PSA, show intro, and special coverage. Looking at yearbook and news, the Columbia Scholastic Press Association awarded the prestigious Gold Crown recognition to the Layer Yearbook from Leander ISD and the Lone Star Yearbook from Vista Ridge. These are 2 of 17 yearbooks across the nation to receive this honor. The Layer Yearbook also picked up 2 first-place Gold Circle Awards in yearbook caption, cut line writing, and in yearbook spread, everything from A to Z. Vandergrift High School received Silver Crown Awards for their publications, the Veteran Yearbook and the Voice digital newspaper. The National Scholastic Press Association awarded Vandergrift Yearbook's Kaya Kinsey first place in feature photo for her work titled Visionary. Other top 3 awards included Valeria Amaya for her second place news photo entitled Chess Tournament, and Mary Balrami for her third place news photo titled Dry Ice. The IPLC recognized the Vista Ridge Yearbook with a gold star and awarded bronze stars to 3 other LISD yearbooks, Cedar Park, Leander, and Vandegrift. Cedar Park's The Wolf Pack also received a bronze star in the online news category. In IPLC Individual Achievement Awards, Vandegrift's yearbook racked up the following distinctions: Inez Martinez, first place for entertainment photo; Seya Mutreja, first place for headlines; Abigail Links, first place for personal opinion column titled AAC Needs Help, and second place for news feature titled Islamic Misconceptions; Valeria Amaya, first place for general news photo and second place for photo portfolio; and Aisha Rashid, second place for personal column titled A Trip to the Holy Cities. Cedar Park's The Wolfcast was named a distinguished site, a national distinction from School Newspaper Online. CPHS also received recognition from the Quill and Scroll International Honor Society with 3 third-place finishes: James Sanderson in caption writing, Aaron Pish in portrait photograph, and Heidi Williams in sports coverage. An amazing job all around by this talented group of storytellers. Competing in a variety of UIL academic categories, LISD students continued to shine. Rouse High School earned 2 team gold medals, taking first place in the Social Studies and Current Issues and Events categories for the second year in a row. Cedar Park High School won second place in the Social Studies team category and placed 3rd overall in the 5A school sweepstakes. At the individual level, Cedar Park's Jaden Kohlenbrander was the 5A Social Studies champion, while Rouse's Christopher Copen took 3rd in the same category. Vista Ridge's Nicholas Ecolino was the 6A Social Studies champion. Cedar Park's Ashley Chikala took second place in the 5A Literary Criticism competition, and Cedar Park's Nathan Lee took 3rd in 5A Lincoln Douglas debate. From Vista Ridge High School, Santiago Malpica Calleja was the state champ in Capitol Congress. Congratulations to all our 1 LISD state academic champions and medalists. Out on the track, the Leander Lasers walked away from the 2023 Summer Games with a handful of medals, including a first-place finish in the 100-meter dash for Luke Martinez and Jonah Meehan. Additional top 3 finishers included Scott Philpott, who finished second in the 100-meter dash, Christian Bradshaw, who finished in 3rd place in the 100-meter dash and the standing long jump events, and Blake Fuller, who finished 3rd in the 100-meter dash. Congratulations to the Lasers for all their training and hard work. LISD's Destination Imagination teams continued this yearly success of creative problem solving at the state tournament and global finals. At state, 3 of the 17 LISD competing teams finished in the top 3. The Canyon Ridge Middle School team finished in 2nd place in the middle level of the Fine Arts Challenge. At the secondary level of the same challenge, the Vandegrift High School #1 team also landed in 2nd. In the elementary level of the Engineering Challenge, Whitestone Elementary's 7 Shooting Stars team finished in 3rd place. At Globals, the Laura Welch Bush Elementary Crazy Yeti Children team took the top spot in engineering, and VHS again finished in 2nd place in fine arts. On the international stage, LISD was also represented by the Vandergrift's Cowboy Pigeon team, 3 teams from CRMS, Canyon Ridge Middle School, Banana Split, and Pluto Punk, and the 7 shooting stars from Whitestone. A round of applause to these students who showcase their creative talents through the Destination Imagination competitions throughout the year. Leander ISD students from Laura Welch Bush Elementary, Parkside Elementary, Reagan Elementary, Tarvin Elementary, Whitestone Elementary, Winkley Elementary, Canyon Ridge Middle School, and Stiles Middle School competed in the 2023 National Mathematics Pentathlon Academic Tournament, receiving numerous medals and honors throughout the course of the competition. The Reagan Elementary team, coached by Joe Peacock, Candace Scott, and Allison Ferris, received the gold medal. The Bush Elementary team, coached by Rathi Fahim, received the bronze medal. Across the district, LISD students accumulated the following distinctions: 24 bronze medalists, 39 silver medalists, 14 gold medalists, and 12 Hall of Fames, recognizing students who scored a perfect score at a national tournament. What an amazing 2022-23 school year, One LISD. We can't wait to see all that our amazing students, staff, and community will accomplish in the years to come.
And we're in the summer, and it's that amazing. So, so thankful for the updates and to see all the amazing things our kiddos are doing. We'll move on now to the next item of our agenda, our citizen comments, and we do have a video for that.
The district and the Board of Trustees are the local government body charged with serving the educational needs of all school children in the Leander Independent School District, like me, as they pursue their mission to cultivate an individual student while creating a safe and supportive environment. The board is now taking up the Citizens' Comment agenda item, which is time set aside during this meeting to hear from the whole community, which can include a wide audience of the entire LISD family. Still, remember that there are other ways you can communicate with the board. You can send them an email, come to a board cafe, or you can just tell them that you'd like to chat sometime. The district believes the Leander family thrives when we ensure a welcoming, safe, and caring environment. Board operating procedures and BED local specifies guidelines, so it is important that you have read them before you speak. The board wants to hear from everyone, but still asks you to be mindful of your conduct and the example you are choosing to set when presenting complex information. If you are presenting material that only certain high schoolers may encounter, remember that school children of all ages may participate in board meetings, either by watching them online, or you might even come see some of us in the audience. When the board president calls your number, remember, watch the timer and focus your remarks to the time allotted. We know it can be hard, but please conclude your comments when you hear the chime.
All right, and as you know, in our board operating procedures, we have students start off citizen comments. They go to the top. We don't have students this evening, so we'll start with speaker number 1, parent or guardian from Leander.
It's quite ironic because the introduction just mentioned that the district believes that the family unit strives when we work together. That's ironic because I signed up tonight to talk about family-focused district. That's my topic tonight. Many of us moved here and purchased homes here because of this school district, because of the family focus that we perceived. And over the past 3 years, we've come to realize that we have very differing views on what the family unit is all about. We have very, very differing views. Many people, including this board and some people in the community, think that we are here because we hate people that don't agree with us. Nothing could be further from the truth. We embrace the family unit. We embrace the parents' rights to raise their children the way they want to. We reject sexualization of our children. It's really very simple, very, very basic. We reject the abuse that we perceive of our children. That's not your job, that's our job. That's a God-given job to us, not to you. It's very, very simple. Keep sex out of it. Just because I don't agree with you doesn't mean I hate you. One final point, and I'll end. Many people in our community have trouble with things that we eat. People don't eat cows, people don't eat pigs. I kind of like both of them. If I don't agree with that, doesn't mean I hate you. I've got a different opinion. Thank you.
All right, thank you, speaker number 1. Speaker number 2, selected other from Austin.
From Austin, but I pay Leander taxes. So, Governor Abbott has recently signed bills into Texas law effective September 1. Here are 2 laws that directly affect public schools that are very relative to LISD. The Reader Act, HB 900, bans sexually explicit books from the public schools. And HB 4520, very interesting one, revokes teacher certificates of educators who expose children to harmful material. In Section 3, Number 4, includes the sale, distribution, or display of harmful material to a minor. Everyone will need to give an accounting for their failures. Whether a failure of commission or omission, they will still be held accountable to the laws. This school board seems to have a pattern of failing to enforce laws and policies that protect the children. What specifically are you doing to rectify the mental health damage done to the young high school female students affected by the boys masturbating in their high school class and in the school hallways? Violations of the law, even if they claim to be well-intentioned, are violations of the law and must be addressed. The specific violations in the case of a teacher at Reagan High School that I spoke about earlier on May 25th actually endangered the mental health of some students while claiming to safeguard that of others. And though part of me wants to believe that that 4th grade teacher at Reagan Elementary, most likely in her own heart.
All right, thank you, speaker number 2. Speaker number 3, parent guardian from Leander.
I'd like to start with well wishes for anyone who's observing or celebrating either Pride Month or Juneteenth, to special observances for many in the Leander School District. For people who want to talk about legality, you might want to have thought about the sexualization of kids when you spent the better part of a year saying things were porn and then reading it to kids who were in the room at the time. You might have wanted to thought about that, and that's what you did, and it's on videotape. So to say that you don't hate your neighbors, I'm not actually buying that, nor do I buy it because of all the misconduct and threats and terrible statements that have been made. Some of these people said that if you bring your kids to the school board meeting so that they can speak, that somehow is child abuse because of the way that you as a group are going to act toward them. That's actually been put in writing. And that only ceased when our family contacted some constitutional lawyers and then talked to the mother organization, Perverted Moms for Perverted Liberty, and told them we were ready with an 8-figure lawsuit. And so everything that's been said, I'm sorry, just there are reasons why people believe that when you say that you might be violent, they actually believe that might actually be true. I hope everyone has a wonderful Juneteenth and Pride Month and engages with the value of loving one's neighbors, loving one's community, one's state, and one's country, and asking it to do better. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, speaker number 3. Speaker number 4, resident of Leander ISD from Leander. Speaker number 4 isn't here. Speaker number 5, resident of Leander ISD, Cedar Park.
I want to thank that young lady right there for cleaning up that mess. All right. How you doing, members of the board tonight? I Tonight, I guess I just wanted to be short. This is our last board meeting for a while. Won't be seeing your shiny faces. The thing that I wanted to talk about was something I learned in pilot school, and that is there's a credo, aviate, navigate, and communicate. And they're in order, right? You need to aviate first. What does aviate mean? It means to maintain altitude. And so I ask you this, where is our altitude now? Not as a district, but as a country. I think we're losing that altitude. We're losing it because we can no longer solve problems. We don't see the same facts. We don't have the same values. What I'm asking you as a district, and by the way, there was a great video on YouTube, Yuri Bezmenov. You should go look at it sometime. He was talking about ideological subversion in this country. And it was 30 years ago, and it looks like he was pretty much right on target. So we're getting there, right? The separation is happening. Pretty soon we won't be able to talk to each other. So the problem that I'd like you to look at, and really two asks, is that one, you kind of reinstitute and reinvigorate a good civics program. Our kids don't know what team they're on anymore, right? They don't even know what patriotism is, it seems like, so many of them. And secondly, show the What is a Woman, Matt Walsh, to all seniors. Thank you. Have a good weekend.
All right, thank you, speaker number 5. Speaker number 6, resident of Leander ISD, Cedar Park.
Hi there, just short and sweet. I just wanted to come and thank the board for all that you do. I personally know that you give a lot of hours volunteering to our community, and I appreciate it. And I thank you for thinking of everyone's children. Yes, as a parent, I have rights, but thank you all for giving your time and thinking of everyone broadly. We're not all Christians. We don't all have straight children. We're all very different, and our school needs to represent that. And I thank you all for being here and everything you do. Thank you.
Thank you, speaker number 6. Speaker number 7, community member that works or shops in the district from Florence.
Does that work? Okay. Hello, board. I'm Dr. Laura Presley. And first and foremost, we are called to protect children. In our endeavors to uplift some students, we must not unintentionally overlook others. Such an oversight would contradict the tenets of Title IX, which insist on the equal treatment of every student regardless of their sexual orientation or identity. The Texas Education Code importantly mandates that our curriculum promotes balanced, nonpartisan viewpoints. Our classrooms should foster unbiased learning and not serve as platforms promoting political or sexual agendas. I want to repeat that. Our classrooms should not be indoctrinating sexual agendas of the board or of the teachers. Texas Penal Code 43.24 prohibits the distribution of sexually explicit material to minors. We share the responsibility to ensure our school materials adhere to the law. Preserving only materials that are age appropriate are provided by the school district to our children that it serves. The penal code's been there a long time. We are not here to promote sexual agendas for our children. Thank you.
Thank you, speaker number 7. Speaker number 8, a parent guardian from Leander.
Hi. I really just wanted to come here and express my gratitude for you guys, the board, our teachers, everyone in our district who's really in a pursuit for academic excellence. There's pillars that just uplift and guide our students towards a brighter future. But I had something written down, but hearing what I just heard was odd. I feel like a lot of these speakers maybe don't have kids in school. I have 4 in Leander School District, in the Leander School District. They're not learning about sex. They aren't, other than their sex ed class. There's no sexually explicit books that they're given in class.
Really? Speakers, please do not interrupt. Can we start? We need to make sure they get there full time. We can't be interrupting speakers.
Appreciate that. I think there's confusion between sexual orientation and the act of sex. So that's odd to me that adults don't understand the difference. When someone's speaking about pronouns, she, her, he, him, it's not a sexual conversation. We all know this. Every adult knows this. This is all a show, it's political theater, and frankly, I'm tired of it. All it's doing is trying to tear apart our community. I come here to uplift the district. I come here as a proud parent. I come here because I'm proud to be in this district, and to see that kind of behavior, it's just, I think I speak for a lot of people in this district, a lot of people in the community. We're so over it. Thank you.
Thank you, speaker number 8. This concludes our citizen comments. We'll now move on to the next item on our agenda, our public hearing. We have a presentation for our public hearing. And to confirm our public hearing, we're going to have our public speaking portion of our public hearing after you do your presentation. We'll call up our people who signed up.
Good evening, members of the board, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Gearing, and community. Today we have our culmination of about 4 or 5 months, 6 months of budget development for the 23-24 budget for the 3 funds that the board needs to adopt. We have the General Fund, the Debt Service Fund, and the Child Nutrition Fund. We go over the process that we started in December. We've had budget prep. In January, February, March, we talked about the development, the assumptions, presented a budget to the board in April, a near final in May, and then tonight we bring for you the budget to be adopted. And this is the public hearing we hold prior to the board taking action. And we have met the public hearing. We've had our ads in the paper. We've met all the legal requirements. And so I will give you a brief overview of kind of each of the 3 funds, and then we will proceed from there. The first fund, the main fund that we have, is the General Fund. The assumptions that we based them on was an enrollment of 43,543 students. We had property value growth on preliminary values of just under 10%. We use a 99% collection rate for our taxes, which is on par with the prior years. Our M&O tax rate is at 0.9344. It's about 0.0102 pennies less than this current year. They're still waiting for some state legislature action, still waiting for some calculations to be completed with TEA, but we actually expect that rate to be lower when we adopt that, but we don't adopt that until August or September. Our INS rate to remain at 33 cents, and for the total tax rate that was put in the legal notice was $1.2644. Tonight we'll be discussing the budget. We will not be adopting the tax rate, but this public hearing serves to allow us to adopt the tax rate at a later time, as long as the total tax rate is equal to 12644 or less. Just kind of look at our revenues. 85% of our revenues for the general fund come from our local taxpayers. 12% of our budget comes from state funding, 1% comes from federal, and 2% come from other local sources. Now, if you break our budget down by expenditures, just kind of real highlight, we're just going to hit the 3 circles in the bottom left. About 57% of our budget is dedicated to instruction, and that's direct instruction. That doesn't include the campus principal, it doesn't include the bus driver's salaries and the cost of buses to get kids to and from school, it doesn't include the librarians, but it's basically just the teacher instruction piece of our budget. Student instructional support is at 13%, maintenance and operations is 8%, and those are the big three. If you look at our expenditures, we've excluded or taken out our recapture payment. And so of that remaining balance, 88% of our budget is payroll. By far the biggest portion of our budget. We are a service organization, so we're very heavy on labor. That leaves about 10-12% of the remaining of our budget to pay for contracted services, utilities, supplies, travel, capital outlay, etc. If you look at our general fund here, a couple things I want to highlight. One is our proposed budget includes a 4% of compensation increase. That is actually in the top portion of our area districts around us. We take a vast amount of pride in being able to offer that to all of our employees to help us to be competitive, to continue to recruit and retain the best talent available. If you look at our budget for this year in the far right column, revenues of just under $491 million, operating expenditures $494.6 million. The results of operations are 3.7 expenditures exceeding revenues. We have another 2.7 million being transferred out to the healthcare fund, so a total revenues less than expenditures of $6.5 million. Now, for note, if you look at, this is what we have done in the past. We have always, not always, but we have adopted a budget within a certain parameter. Prior years, it was 4% of the budget, excluding recapture. 4% of our expenditures, we could have our expenditures exceed our revenues by up to 4%. This year, we changed it from 4% to 3%. If you recall, last year, I believe we adopted a budget close to the $25 million deficit. All said and done, after the amended budget, it is about just under $12 million deficit. When you look at the next column over the third column, the actual, it looks like we're going to add $9 to $10 million to fund balance prior to any transfers out that were approved at the last board meeting. So when you look at our 3% this year, it would be about $13 million, and we're actually at half of that on our adopted budget, and with a 4% compensation increase for all of our staff. So all that being said, and all that was very little new revenue from the state outside of the golden penny yield increasing, and that was it. This legislature still hasn't passed anything on school funding. So with all that being said, we are excited to be able to bring this budget to the board for adoption tonight. The next fund is our debt service budget. Our debt service is just under $153 million. This debt service is all the funds from our debt service come from our local taxpayers and some interest revenue. Occasionally get a little bit of monies from the state for some hold harmless when they changed the homestead exemption from I think 10 to 25,000 a couple of years back. We have just under 34 million in principal, 83 million in interest, 12,000 in fees. And then we have a defeased debt of just under $36 million of additional debt we plan to pay off during this upcoming year. And this is something that we have done since 2015, and since that time we have saved our taxpayers over $625 million in paying off debt early. The third fund is the Child Nutrition Services budget. This is a budget that total revenue is just under $16.2 million. Expenditures are just under $15.7 for a $500,000 surplus. We contract this out, and as part of that agreement, they agree to have revenues exceed expenditures by $500,000. Just real brief overview of the tax information. If you look at the tax history, interest and sinking rate and M&O, we kind of a steady decrease since 2011-12, with a sharper increase in the last 3 or 4 years. A lot of that due to the state funding formulas. We are, like I said, 0.0102 cents less than the current rate, but we do expect that rate, even following current law, to actually be a little bit lower than that. But we will bring that to you in August or September to adopt that rate. And then here's just an overview. Assuming the MCR is 0.7944, we actually think it's going to be less than that. All 8 gold pennies, all 6 of the copper pennies get just at 0.9344, 33-cent INS tax rate, total tax rate $1.2644, just over a cent less than the current rate. With that said, there is any questions or discussion?
All right, so the Board of Trustees will now move to the citizen comment portion first for the public hearing on the 2023-2024 budget and proposed tax rate, and invite those who have signed up to comment on this public hearing item to come forward when your number is called. As a reminder, the board is going to be restricted in ways we can interact with you during this portion of our meeting per our board operating procedures and policy BED local. Each speaker has 1.5 minutes to address the Board of Trustees, and you will hear a chime when your time is up. Please conclude your comments when you hear the chime. Speaker number 1, parent guardian from Leander.
This is once again very ironic because watching the presentation, I took careful note of the fact that 85% of your budget comes from public tax dollars. And what I signed up to speak on tonight, the topic is taxation without representation. It's directly connected to what I talked about previously. You are elected to represent all of us, not just the people that you like. All of us. We all pay tax to this district, and then we get ignored. If you haven't yet noticed, I've been here for 3 years. I'm not going away. And by the way, I don't just represent myself. There are many people who I'm here to speak for who can't come down here. You can't ignore this and then say, can you approve? No, we're not going to approve your tax rate. We're not going to buy into what you're trying to sell us when you try to twist our words. And Madam President, you've got to do a better job at being impartial. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, speaker number 1. And then this will conclude unless we're going to have this discussion later on our agenda. So there's nothing else that's here. It all covers in our agenda later. So then we'll do that discussion then as a board when that comes up, just to make sure we save on kind of focusing our agenda topics on the right time. With that being said, we'll close this public hearing. There's no other speakers signed up, and we'll move on to our consent and superintendent's report. Consent agenda first.
I move that the board approve the consent agenda items as presented.
I second.
Okay, I have a motion from Anna, second from Christine. All those in favor, please raise your hand. 7 ayes, no nays, motion carries. All right, we'll go ahead and move. Next item, our superintendent report.
Thank you, Madam President. Turned my mic off. It is summer, and we have started and kicked off our summer feed-in program. So this is just a shot from one of our summer feed-in sites. I want to walk you through quickly some things here. This is the kickoff that we posted for everyone in the community so that they understand where we're serving and what we are doing. And then I just had to put this one in there because it's it's just, I love the fact that the parent is there with the siblings and the whole family. It just, it was a great moment captured by one of our SCR folks. Our summer meal service is June 5th through the 30th, and then we take a short break and then run again July 10th through 28th at Reed, Danielson, Running Brushy middle schools. And you can check our website and see where we have breakfast and lunch hours on there. Another great thing that just happened the other day was our Lit Loves Symposium. And here we had keynotes by authors, we had book talks and giveaways, and also some choice learning sessions. And so this happened at Glen High School. Great turnout of students and staff and even some board members, and our community enjoying really a love of books and the great things that come for kids when they are engaged in summer reading. And then hopefully you remember this young man from a previous convocation. And I bring him up because, remember, he's going to graduate in the class of 2034. He's no longer a kindergartner, but moving on. But the really great thing is that his mother is one of our staff members and one of our empowered employees who participated in that Lit Love celebration. We also have some great folks from our early college high school who presented at the Texas College and Career Readiness and Choice Models Conference. They did a fantastic job, Clay and Heather and Kim. They are doing an incredible job out at the early college high school, and we're excited to be heading into year 2 as we roll our freshmen up into their sophomore year and add a new class of freshmen at Early College High School. And of course, they're based out at the ACC campus on San Gabriel, doing a great job out there. Wanted to just run through some of the work that's already happening across the district. Some of this bond related, some of it not. We always talk about professional development in the district, but usually we're talking about instructional professional development, but we do lots of professional development for other areas in our district as well. And so wanted to highlight that we have exterior window washing training, terrazzo restoration training for the fronts of some of our buildings, and they also do carpet cleaning training that's happening across the district this summer to make sure that we're ready to keep all of our buildings at the pristine condition that our kids and our staff deserves. We're doing ag bond electrical upgrades. This is something that we've been working with the fire marshal on across the district to make sure that our ag bonds are safe, both for our students and our staff, and of course the animals that we house out there. And so that's happening. Currently we're already finished at Cedar Park High School and Rouse High School, and they're currently working out at Leander High School and Vista Ridge High School to make sure that all of those projects get done by early August. We do have portables currently getting installed across the district. By the end of the summer, we'll have 13 portable installations. We have 8 units on site right now, so that means that we have 16 halves of portables that are getting merged right now. Then they still get all the ramps to make them ADA accessible, make sure that they're hooked up to electricity and of course internet and all of those things that they need to become classrooms. And you can see the campuses where those are going across the district. We have turf replacement happening on the high school football fields at Cedar Park and Vista Ridge High School. Those should get done by this week. If you haven't seen them, they've been out there for the last couple of weeks getting that work done. We've already completed all the work on the ladder safety improvements at all of our band and football towers. Some of these had got modified over time, and so we've gone back in and replaced the cages around the ladder structures to make sure that we have only those designated folks who need to be up there as we go through the year. Concrete work happening at Aiken High School, Elementary School, and Rouse High School is getting column repair on the outside. That work is going on. We have completed all the work at Leander High School in the gyms, so those both of those floors are now operational and being used with summer camps, etc. Other summer projects going on. We have some roofing projects. We have stage drapes going in, which we should have done by early August. Athletics office and restriping of parking lots around the district. We really want to give a huge shout out to our plant services crews and our custodial staff who are doing an incredible job across the district. We really appreciate everything that they're doing. And of course, this week we had State of the District address. We want to thank all 7 of our board members for being there. I want a special shout out to our 3 chambers who put this event on for us, the West Austin Chamber, the Cedar Park Chamber, and the Leander Chamber. We had a great event. We had student involvement, really spectacular morning. So thank you all for supporting everything that we do across the district as we continue the great work of Leander ISD.
All right, we will move on to our discussion and action item, student experience, A1, discussion of Leander ISD reading intervention redesign.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, and Dr. Gearing. I am here with Amy Chase, our coordinator of special programs, and we are here to talk to you about some reading intervention redesign that we are working through so that we can minimize the loss of core instruction and optimize student outcomes in reading. As Dr. Bentz talked to you about last week, we were coming with a presentation to dig into this reading redesign a little bit more to give you some more information about the work that we are doing in special programs in partnership with the curriculum team. So the impetus for this redesign, the why we decided to do this, is we received a lot of stakeholder feedback through listening sessions, principal feedback, feedback from principal supervisors, parents, teachers. We receive a lot of feedback on the services that we provide. Lots of great feedback, but also feedback on areas that we can improve. We have had an increase in students needing intervention, some of that due to COVID, but also just a variety of different experiences, and so we are seeing a rise in those numbers. We have had a redesign committee that has come together, and they have been visioning and thinking through the possibilities for how we can best serve our students needing this additional reading intervention. We also went through a program evaluation. I've talked about that prior in our federal programs budget discussions. We went through a program evaluation to look through the effectiveness of our current interventions and how we can improve. So we received feedback there. And we are also looking at data from our universal screeners. So all of that information is the why we looked into a reading redesign. So these next couple of slides are just a reminder from the presentation that Dr. Bentz gave last week. And you can see here in our K-5 reading grade level readiness that our data is stable, and some of the data is moving in a direction that we are not hoping for. And so looking at this data, it charges us to revisit our interventions, revisit our student services, to see what is working well and what we can make improvements in. And this is the second data slide that Dr. Bentz showed last week that looks at the ISIP, and you can see similar trends in this data across our elementary campuses in K through 5 reading grade level readiness on the ISIP. And so as we went through this redesign process, our commitment in the work that we did was to enhance and protect student services that are provided in addition to Tier 1 classroom instruction. So really looking at that Tier 2 and Tier 3 instruction, regardless of budgetary and staffing constraints, that perfect world, what do our students need and how are we going to provide that for them? And we had two primary goals. Our goal was to optimize student learning outcomes, and also to minimize loss of Tier 1 instruction. This is the information that was given to the committee to really think through how we serve our kids and how we can make improvements. And here, Dr. Bentz talked a little bit about this, and this is what we're going to dig into more tonight, is the reading intervention redesign, a look at our reading specialists from SRP and dyslexia and what that looks like, a shift towards co-teaching and co-planning to serve our students, targeted small group instruction in the classroom. You saw in the commitment that it was maximizing core instructional time, that Tier 1 instruction, and so looking at how we can provide in-class supports versus the pull-out supports. Looking at explicit phonics instruction in our early intervention, as well as professional learning for all of our K-1 teachers. So looking at the redesign, we are focusing on K-1. I do want to make sure that our community knows and our staff knows and you guys know we are not getting rid of reading intervention. We know that these are services that our students need. We are just redesigning so that we can provide better services and continue to help our students make progress.
Okay, can you hear me? Is that better? Okay. All right, so with all of that in mind, we've come together with an action plan that we are in the midst of rolling out. And so we will be rolling this out over the course of this next year, but then we also have a more of a long-range plan that I'll talk about in a few minutes. But this action plan really focuses on 3 different areas: the area of professional learning, resources, and then staffing structure. So I'm going to talk briefly about each of those areas. So when we think about professional learning, we've been working very closely with our ELA curriculum team to think about how we can bring both our general education classroom teachers and our reading specialists together to really maximize the support of our students. And so we have come up with this focus in mind. So as we've designed our plan across this next year, we're really trying to keep our target at how do we empower our teachers to feel confident in their ability to support students in foundational reading, regardless of student need. So how do we really build that confidence in our staff? And so we will focus, in order to bring that to life, we will focus on 3 things related to professional learning. We will focus on consistent, explicit instruction and foundational reading skills. We will focus on the understanding of collaborative teaching models and then how to implement those in the classroom. And then we will focus on how do we analyze data, set goals, and then target those supports to meet individual needs of students. So we will do that work with our teachers across this next year. There will be targeted plans throughout the year. We're really going to be focusing a lot on that implementation and really following up with all stakeholders to ensure that we're getting those feedback loops and supporting our teachers as we move forward. Then when we think about our area of resources, we thought about those 3 tiers within that RTI model and how can we really beef up all 3 levels so that we are ensuring that students are getting all 3 levels if they need it, right? And so we want to make sure that we start first with all students receiving access to really strong Tier 1 instruction. So how do we ensure that all students get strong core instruction? So we're going to work really closely with both our classroom teachers and our specialists to really build their capacity to, again, provide that explicit, systematic instruction utilizing the curriculum that we have. Okay. Then when we think about Tier 2, that is one of the areas that we know classroom teachers have requested the most support in. And so we're really thinking about how do we support that classroom teacher. So we've brought some of our reading specialists together this summer, and we've really been working, and I'm super excited to roll it out. We're going to do that as part of our plan in October. That will get rolled out in October. And what this resource does is it allows our teachers to first start with their data. So it leads them through the process. How do I look at my data? How do I dig into my data? How do I target the skill? What is the root of the problem that the child is struggling with? And then from that, how do I write a really specific targeted goal? And then how do I link that goal to a resource? And we've identified resources that we suggest that teachers use. So it's kind of a one-stop shop for our teachers. We're going to partner with our RTI coordinators because they are the leader of that on their campus. So we're going to have them help us deliver that training to our teachers so that we have that support at the campus level for follow-up. And then for our Tier 3, when we're thinking about that level 3, that most intensive support that we provide to some of our students, we are going to continue down that path of collective responsibility that we've really been focusing on in the last year or two by cross-training our reading specialists to provide more flexible support so that we have more teachers that can utilize resources so that we can match students with the best resource for those students. We will follow that up with lots of work together. We're going to work on calibration. We're going to work on spending time watching each other instruct. And we're going to really focus on that fidelity of our implementation because we want to ensure that what we are, if we have this resource, that we're using it in the right way. And so that will be the focus of our resource support. And then finally, with our staffing structures, we're making a few changes. So again, on that kind of that path of collective responsibility, when we think about how are we bringing our special programs staff together to think about how we support students without those programmatic silos. So that's the goal of our collective responsibility, so that students are looked at as children with needs and who is the best person to support them, regardless of their programmatic needs. So we look at that first, and so in order to do that, we're making a shift from having 2 different titles. Right now we have a supplemental reading program, and then we have a dyslexia program. Those teachers are called dyslexia teachers or SRP teachers, right? We're moving that title under one umbrella. We're going to call these teachers now reading specialists, and again, we're going to work to build the capacity of them to support flexibly. And as Kimberly said, that does not mean that we are not providing dyslexia services to students, right? Every team will have teachers that are trained in the resources that we need at every campus. So we will all have, every campus will have a basic language skills trained teacher and a reading by design teacher so that we can still meet those needs, right? So it's about building more capacity to support. The second big shift that we're making in kindergarten and first grade because we know that if we get this right in kindergarten and first grade, that we could probably prevent, or we hope to prevent, the need for intervention further down the road. So we're going to focus really on that. How do we systematically support our kids in those grades? So we are pushing, as Kimberly said earlier, we're pushing our support of instruction by reading intervention specialists into the classroom. So students will not be pulled out of the classroom in grades K and 1 unless they have a 504 or an IEP that indicates that that is what the child needs. So we have a few resources that our recommendation is that resource is better delivered outside of the classroom. So those students will have that opportunity if they need it. The remaining students, we're going to focus on that least restrictive environment and work within the classroom. We know that that's good for all students. We also know that there's a lot of incidental benefit by pushing that support into that classroom. So we're really going to focus on that. In addition, we're going to utilize data, and we're going to look at what's going on in some of these K-1 classrooms. And based on some of that data, there will be some classrooms that we will choose to target for additional collaborative teaching support. So if you have data that indicates that there may be a need in that classroom for additional support during the day, a specialist and a classroom teacher will work in a year-long collaborative model where they will work together to support that classroom during the phonics and word study portion of the day and the small group instruction. And that will be a year-long partnership, which we're really excited about. We're going to track those kids across the course of the year just to see what those outcomes look like as we carry forward. Okay, so that's kind of those bigger action plan changes. Like we said, this is a phased-in approach, so you'll see that our 23-24 plan, this is sort of what we've already outlined. We're going to change that title of our teachers to all be reading specialists. And as I said, like I said, if we get this right in K and 1, we're hopefully going to prevent the need for additional intervention in those later grades, which we know is harder to recoup at that point. So we're really going to push into, lean into full year in-class kindergarten support. That is a change. We have only been supporting in that first semester, and then we've been qualifying and pulling out. So that's going to be a full year long, and then all first grade support will also be that in-class collaborative teaching, and again, those high-yield collaborative teaching models for those classrooms that indicate a need. And then we're going to learn a lot this year. We're going to take a lot of data. We're going to talk to a lot of people. We're going to spend a lot of time in classrooms this year. And based on that, our plan really is in the following years. Year 2, we're going to look at how do we roll this out with our 2nd and 4th grade classrooms. So we'll do a same kind of training model for those teachers, expand that resource that we've created for Tier 2, focus again on those teaching models, and then in the 3rd year, we're going to move towards 3rd and 5th grade so that within 3 years you have that K-5 model of mainly that in-class support and targeted collaborative teaching where needed. And then finally, these are just some of our next steps. Like I said, we've really been working with our curriculum team because we know it's important that we're in alignment to implement a professional learning plan for our K-1 teachers and reading specialists. We're going to roll out that Tier 2 resource, collect that data and refine it, and then ensure that all stakeholders are supported along the way. And we just really believe in the importance. Research shows us that early intervention is key. So we feel like if we can be proactive and really dig in at these early ages, that the long-term impact on our system will maximize those outcomes for all students.
And we'll open it up back to you, Madam President.
All right, board members.
Quick question. How do you feel? Do you feel like we have enough of the specialized staff to roll this out the way we, with our intentions?
So I can talk to you about that a little bit. So my partner, Carrie and I, she supports the dyslexia team. I have mainly supported the SRP team and the intervention specialist. So when we made our staffing placements this year and our allocations, we spent a lot of time looking at historical data to really think about what are the needs of the campuses, what does that look like, and thinking about you have reading specialists that are both dyslexic. So we're bringing larger teams together, right? So we hope that we have, I mean, our theory is that we have made the right decision in placements, places where we anticipate we'll have more staff, we'll put them in those places. We've also worked with our campus principals. We've had 3 master scheduling, and then we've gone to several campuses just to work individually master scheduling meetings about how you can make this work, even if you have just the minimum any campus would have would be 2, right? How you could make that work by doing some strategic scheduling of when those blocks happen across the day. So we believe we've made the right placements. So, and we'll adjust. Again, we're going to take that data.
I know you're going to move them under an umbrella of SRP and dyslexia, and that might give people pause because, of course, they're taking something away. We're really not. We're just changing the title, so to speak. And I know that that's important because words matter. So will there be cross-training? I mean, I feel like they're close, but I know that they're both so specialized. So I feel like, will there be cross-training for those teachers? How does that work?
You may answer that. Sure. Yes, ma'am. We've actually started that process over the last several years. So we have invested in a trainer-trainer models for a resource called Reading by Design that we are working to ensure. That's one of the things that we track, balanced teams. Balanced teams where teachers you don't have to be the dyslexia teacher to teach. Right. Yeah.
I had a question.
Yes, ma'am.
This intervention sounds very similar to House Bill 3928 that was just passed, signed by the governor, the dyslexia bill. Can you give me some, just so parents know what Christine's saying, because I have heard back from parents. They're like, they're getting rid of dyslexia and Leander. They're not servicing us. What are we going to do? But with this bill and also with this intervention, can you all tell me or give the community a little idea of how they're connected? I know I've talked to you about this.
Okay, you want to talk
with
about that?
Kimberly. Sure.
I don't have that bill in front of me, so I'm going to go off of memory. What's great about a lot of the work of this bill is when the handbook changed, I think it was last year, the handbook changed, we already implemented a lot of the things that are required in this new House bill. And so we do have some training on notification to parents. One of the examples in there is that when a student is at an alternative placement, upon return, they are made aware of the opportunity for a full and individual evaluation. And so we're working through some systems and processes like that. There were some minor changes in the evaluation and the pathway. So already everybody that was suspected for having a dyslexia disability was offered an evaluation first through special ed. And they either qualified or they did not qualify, or the parents said, nope, that's not the right route for us, and they were able to utilize the 504 route. So there were already some changes that were just refined in this, and so there's not a huge impact other than training and making sure that we are clearly communicating with our staff on some of the nuances within that bill.
And I just want some clarification. Again, I've heard from parents the push-in services. This is kind of new for some parents. I've been fortunate. I've been able to see the advantages of it. It really does impact the student and the students around them. Will we be able to perhaps provide education in our parent special education group? Because it is a change in the system, and I think once parents see the benefits that it has to their student, it really is impactful throughout their journey through special education. I think that right there is going to be, I'm worried how we will educate the community on that, but I have no doubt that we will.
Yes, we can absolutely do that. That's a great idea to add it to a parent education night. We also know that some of this training is going to come from the staff that our families trust the most, and it's that campus level staff. And so, yes, we will absolutely be communicating that. We are also providing training at Leadership Retreat this summer on co-teaching and on the redesign, so our principals and our APs are equipped with the information to support their community. I'll give one data point. We have a campus that piloted the push-in services, and typically they would have about 30 students historically in kindergarten qualify for Tier 3 pull-out support. With the push-in model, they had about 6. So we are seeing progress with the push-in. We know that that is not going to benefit each and every student, and so if it is not working for a student and we're not seeing the growth that we need, this is not going to stop that progress and that additional support for our students.
I have a quick clarifying question, because I'm seeing a lot of confusion in the community around that we need these interventions because the numbers on like slides 4 and 5 are indicating that our students are making no progress in reading at all. Can you clarify that, please?
So I will start, and then I'm going to hand it over to the reading expert. But the levels within the assessments change. And so while the data does look like it is making no progress, the skills that are assessed and the expectations for students change from test to test. And so while it might go from 72 to 71, well, the criteria changed a little bit within that. Anything to add?
Yeah, so there was an adjustment, because this is iStation data that you're looking at. There were some adjustments that were made to that in the last year. So some of that is, I think, impacted by that. And then in addition, you have to think about that at certain points, kids gate out of certain skills across a year. So then, like if you're looking, it does kind of impact how those bars move, because certain kids continue to take an assessment and then certain kids do not. And so that can also impact, if that makes sense. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So follow up on that, though. We're not yet where we want to be, which is why we're doing this. We know that there's more we want to do for our students, and that our teachers and our students are ready for those next steps.
Absolutely. And we know this is the foundation of all learning, right? You need to read to do all the things, right? So we're going to...
Yeah, and I think it's also important to point out that the reason that we're shifting slightly, and it's really a relatively subtle shift, is based on program evaluation that we did, based on data that we've been watching very carefully, and what's happening in different parts of that, and then you're even seeing confirmation of that in current year data.
Right. The places that we have been doing some piloting of this across the district for a little while now, and so we know from our data that that's where we are making the biggest impact, especially not when you're not looking at students that are getting that tier 3 level of support, but we're finding that we're having the greatest impact when we're pushing into those rooms with students in what we call that tier 2 level, because we're able to support those students. And if we can get them in tier 2, then we're less likely to need that tier 3 level of support. So our data is indicating that.
Yeah, and just like with the math intervention, really focusing on really good, strong tier 1 instruction to avoid them ever getting to that point, if at all possible.
Yes.
And so that math doesn't feel left out, or that you don't feel left out, I'll make the same request. Would you please continue to bring us the data to show us how these interventions are working? At what point do you think we'll see a change in the data?
Well, so what I would say is that we will probably have some data based on, like I said, we're going to identify classrooms using September iStation data that we are going to target for that collaborative teaching model. And so I would say that we can look, our goal really, we require across the district that the students take that assessment in September, January, and May. So our goal is to kind of see what is the rate of improvement for those students in those classrooms relative to the students in the other classrooms that are not getting that necessarily that targeted support. All now we'll say this, all teachers will be getting professional learning whether they have a collaborative teaching model. So we hope to see improvement across the board, but using data for classrooms that have 50% or more students falling in what we call at risk in our system according to ISIP levels 1 or 2 overall, or the classrooms will be targeting to start. So we can kind of watch that rate of improvement. We're hoping to see great things even starting in January. Yeah.
I will say one more thing about the co-teaching model. As a former co-teacher, being new to profession, walking into a classroom, I learned a great deal from the teachers that I got to watch in the classroom. So not only could I better serve students and better understand the curriculum as I was supporting students that receive special ed services, but also those classroom teachers learned a lot from me. How do we naturally intervene? How do we provide quick resources? If something's not working, we can, send a message across the room and try a different strategy or swap out. And so the level of professional learning and the level of coaching that's going to happen naturally in our classrooms, we do believe there's going to be a big impact.
Well, thank you so much. We're hopeful, have big dreams, and thank you all for bringing this and showing us kind of what these next steps look like.
Thank you.
All right. That'll wrap up this agenda item. We'll move on to the next one under student experience. Consider approval of instructional materials, world languages update. And this is on our agenda for action requested this evening, correct? Okay.
Good evening, Madam President, Dr. Gearing, members of the board. I have with me tonight Tina Dozier, who is our Director of Global Languages and Cultures, and she's going to be doing the bulk of this presentation because she did quite a bit of this work. But I'm just going to introduce why we're here and talk a little bit about why we're doing this now. And so the purpose of this presentation is to provide the Board of Trustees information about the instructional materials selection process for two of our world languages. That is our American Sign Language, and that is our Chinese or Mandarin that we offer at some of our campuses as well. This was part of the original process. Tina's going to tell you a little bit about the details of how that process worked and why we're bringing this to you now in June.
Thank you, Krista, and good evening, board members. Thank you. The adoption timeline process for world languages, including Chinese levels 1, 2, 3, and 4, and American Sign Language levels 1, 2, 3, and 4, followed the same timeline as the other content areas who presented their recommendations in March, with the unique exception of the second to last bullet point, which is the RFP process and vendor approval process, which took us through April and May with 2 of the vendors. Those processes have been approved and are ready for recommendation to the board this evening. The board communication timeline, this slide will look very familiar to all of you. It was the identical slide of what was presented in March, showing the steps of communication with the board for this process, with our final recommendation being in June as opposed to March. A very, very critical and important component of this process is, of course, gathering community and our curriculum team feedback. Those opportunities for feedback are shared in this same slide that you saw in March. I'd really like to highlight the collaboration with DWIC and other district-wide committees, as well as the participation of our world languages teams in the 3 virtual listening sessions that were offered to our community this past February. This slide as well is a replication of what you saw in March, but it does show the metrics showing over 400 participants who gave feedback either through viewing the resources on the website, as well as our DWIC members and the CACAC and SSAC members who participated in feedback for this process. So this slide shows the 2 areas of consideration and recommendation for Chinese 1 through 4. The recommendation is for the vendor Cheng Sui for the online platforms for all levels of 1 through 4 for the instructional support materials for Chinese language instruction. There are 2 vendors and 2 resources represented in the amount that you see for ASL 1 through 4. The first is a fully digital platform offered by ASL Defined, and the second being Sign Naturally, which is our current, the current adoption that we are utilizing, and this is the updated version. So this offers both a digital option and then the hard copy option for both teachers and students. Very quickly, can I just say thank you and to our Chinese curriculum teams and our ASL curriculum teams, as well as our greater LISD community, for the incredible work that they did, leading to the fruition of recommendation tonight.
Board members, any questions? I'm curious, the Chinese language one that we're adopting, this is for a virtual platform only, or is it digital and... So it can be in person or...
So the initial purchase is for the digital portion of it. They do offer supplementary, or they do offer a mirrored opportunity for hard copy resources. In communication with our teachers, they have recommended and would have recommended the digital platform. Excellent. With small sets of hard copies available for students should they need them.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent.
I move that the Board of Trustees adopt the instructional materials as presented for use and subsequent purchase using the Leander Independent School District 2023 instructional materials allocation.
I second.
I have a motion from Gloria, second from Christine. All those in favor, please raise your hand. 7 ayes, no nays, motion carries. All right, thank you so much. Appreciate that. We'll move on to our next agenda item, board member committee updates. And board members, this is really the time for the chairs of our board committees to give us an update on meeting, or if they are meeting, or what's happening. We have 4 board committees, audit committee, board operating procedures, legislative priorities, and policy review.
I'll start. Board operating procedures, we are doing a massive cleanup again. I've gotten several recommendations from other board members to consider, and once Trish and I meet with our board attorney, we will be bringing it to the board for discussion in August.
And there's no back and forth, so if you submit something, just know that we're not going to follow up. We'll work with the attorney. It's only in the meeting where we can have those discussions.
So the internal audit, or the audit committee met, and we also met with the admin and other committee members. They're on admin as well as the staff. And so what the RFQ is being prepared to go out, and that would be, the process will go through parts of July, and then we'll be ready to review the results shortly afterwards and bring information back to the board in August.
The Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Committee,
No, just policy.
Policy, just policy.
Just policy.
Okay.
Just board committees. Okay. Any updates from policy? Nope. Okay. And legislative updates next, so I'll save our update until we get to that item. So that'll conclude our board meeting member committee updates. We'll move on to legislative update. I'll let you know that board members, your legislative committee has been very busy. When regular session ended, special session started, we did take a small pause to kind of recalibrate. We're getting all the information together on what really happened during the legislative first regular session, the regular session. There was a $33 billion surplus that started off the 88th regular session. Also, what started off is recommendations from our teacher vacancy task force saying that they wanted more funding for our teachers. It appeared that we would have some type of consensus and thought on how to help add this funding, not only to public education, but to also our teachers and staff. There was also discussion of security. Much needed security changes were discussed. Security updates were discussed, and guidelines are put out by TEA. Legislators discussed those items. However, even though discussion wasn't going to be $100 per student, the final version actually came out to $10 per student, with $15,000 per campus. So yeah, I just, you can hear the disparity or difference in thought originally. Lawmakers didn't reach consensus on, I would say, a large portion of Article 3 funding. Article 3 funding is where your public education dollars are coming from. So when Pete gets up and shows us this graph, know that our state lawmakers have said over and over again that they wanted it to be at 50%, yet we see our community is shouldering far more of that burden than what the state says they had planned to pick up. There were promises again that the state was going to look at addressing that. That has not happened yet. Another part of the discussion was HB 100. There was a whole lot of discussion on what does finance look like. Some of the things we had in our legislative priority, talking about some more of that enrollment-based type of philosophy on funding, was actually in original versions of that HB 100. However, as HB 100 moved over to the Senate side, those Article 3 dollars for public education that was going to be, I would argue, something you could look at for public education. There was another program that was added to that, which would divert funding out of the public education Article 3 and start a whole nother program. So Lots of, I think, hopes and dreams when we saw the 88th regular session start, and a lot of things didn't come to fruition. Now, what I can tell you is I feel that our district is in excellent shape thanks to the board, and very much appreciative of administration and their work. We see that evidenced in what was presented tonight, and we'll follow up again from Pete about even the deficit is like it's even less than the normal deficit. So we're in a very solid state because of the planning, and we didn't get too far ahead of planning all the things that were thought going to be heading to public education. So thank you for that, Pete. I don't think anybody in their crystal ball thought that it was going to be this short, but it is. And you have us in a good position from Legislative Committee and from all of our discussions. So we're very thankful for that. Also of note, in those items is there were more things that came up in the legislative session, and I had a list of them all, but don't worry, they'll get out. You've heard some of them discuss. There'll be more information coming out on those items, but you've heard some of those bills listed, and I'll pull them up here. HB 114 was a bill that adds possession, use, and sale or delivery of vape devices as mandatory DAEP placement. And although we realize the delivery, use, sale of vape devices is something that we are combating and do take serious, this now mandate of a mandatory DAE placement kind of changes, I think, even what some people thought when they were wanting some more support to help stop this growing issue. We also saw several bills that have either been signed by the governor or are on his desk to be signed, and I'm not going to list which ones are signed or not. I'm just going to kind of do a big overview. HB 900 by Patterson we heard about. HB 1416 by Keith Bell. That's our 4545 cleanup. HB 1605 by Buckley, and that's the high quality instructional material ones that we heard about. High quality instructional materials. TEA is going to specify, it's kind of a, I don't know, state curriculum type bill. So we'll see how that continues to roll out. HB 3803 by Cunningham. Parents can elect for their children to retake a grade level or course. Senate Bill 763 by Middleton, where chaplains could be offered as school counselors depending upon board policy that's adopted. SB 838 by Creighton, panic devices in the schools. And Senate Bill 2124 by Creighton again, which is accelerated math requirements. There are so many other bills, but I just wanted to give you some that our legislative committee closely watched and looked at kind of as it changed and progressed. And it's just like we talked about in some of those earlier finance bills where you thought it was all going to be one way or here's something, and as it moved, it didn't turn out exactly as you expected. I believe because of the legislative committee meeting and discussing and talking to Colby and continuing having those calls, we have our district positioned in the best possible situation we can with so many things that were in flux, but we have a lot more work to do. There's a special session already on the books, and we know that there's another special session on the horizon. So our legislative committee and our district needs to stay engaged and follow these issues, and we intend to do so. I will say one highlight is the golden penny yield was already in law, and that maintained that increase, so we did see a small little increase there. That way I could end on a high note. A little something. I mean, it was already there, but, you know, something. We're going to be thankful for every penny. Are there any questions in the legislative committee? Is there anything you want to add about kind of our work this legislative session or what we anticipate for the special session?
Just get ready to advocate for public education.
All right. Well, that concludes our legislative update if there are no questions. And we'll move over to our board purpose statement and evaluation. Item governance B3.
All right, good evening, Madam President, Board of Trustees, and Dr. Gearing. I'm a little sad to say I'm here by myself tonight. So as you know, Dr. Martinez is retiring, and so this was her last day with us. And
Just
well,
for the
she
record,
did it.
Sarah is kinder than I am because I made Sarah come. If it was up to me, she would have been sitting there, but Sarah gave her off. So
I did the other day. I said, okay, I will let you have the evening off, your last evening off. So, okay, so I am here tonight to continue the conversation we actually started last week. So if you recall, we came to you just to revisit the board purpose statement and the board goals. We had shared with you, so one, revisiting the board purpose statement, which we did not receive any feedback that we needed to make any alters to this statement. Then we talked about the goal statements for board action. So what is it that you want to hold yourselves accountable to, and the indicators. So again, we shared these with you last week. We did not have any feedback during the meeting or even after the meeting. So unless we hear from others later on, this will still stand as the board goals and indicators. So we talked through each of these, gave you some time to look over them. So along with this, we also asked you to do the TASB self-assessment, which is actually a requirement for every board to complete. And we have attached that in board book for you because we do have the results for the team of 8. And so I'm going to allow you to pull that up just a little bit if you have a moment. I know we just were able to load this today, so you've not had much time to process that, I'm sure. So really this is going to be just kind of a high level, and then what can you expect moving forward. So I thought it was interesting as you look at this, anytime when you're looking at data, you're always looking for what stands out. And when you start looking at this, and our community can definitely pull up the self-assessment and see high level of agreement on strongly agree and agree on a lot of these indicators, actually on all of the indicators, high level. So then you start looking for where do we start to see any kind of separation in the data? What does stand out to you? And there are some things that do stand out. And again, you're going to have the opportunity to read through this. But just as I was looking through it, some things that stand out where we start to see variation are ensuring processes. Any of the statements that were around ensuring processes, we started to see a little bit of variation in the data. And so I think that definitely is something to highlight. Along with that, there was this question about the board agenda planning calendar, which we know we've done intentional work around that. And it was still strongly agree and agree, but it was fascinating because we started to see 57% strongly agree, 43% agree. Again, still phenomenal results, but we're not at that strongly agree that we were seeing, like in some cases, 88% on some of the indicators. So, as I make connections to that, is there some work that needs to happen in our board agenda planning calendar that helps to provide for you that insurance that certain policies and procedures are being monitored? So I think I can start to see some of those connections. So as I look through this, some questions that just for you all to ponder as you're processing it. How does this data connect with your defined goals? So if I go back over, these goals that you had identified, how does this data connect to that? And how does it inform individual and or team of 8 training? And then how does it inform board agenda planning calendar? So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to be sending out a form to you all to gather feedback after you've had some time to process this self-assessment and see what are the things that you're seeing that we want to maybe adjust on the board agenda planning calendar to actually address some of the pieces in this self-assessment. And then also allowing you to give that other feedback of things we may need to tweak based off of what you're seeing here. So that is going to be coming, but I just wanted to give a high-level overview of what we were seeing. So I'm going to just pause for any questions. But
And board members, last year when we did this report, we had a team of 8 responses. We have our team of 8 responses again. So it might be interesting to compare and contrast to see where we've grown, or areas where we want to continue improvement. This is something to think about if you're going to SLI next weekend, our SLI in San Antonio. But if you're going to any of the SLIs, this might have some training opportunities to kind of ping in your thought process of like, oh, I think I wanted more training here. Oh, I thought as a board this would be good for us, so I'll go get the training. And be thinking of other conferences that are coming up. So we not only have SLI, we have MASBA, we have TASB in the fall, Region 13 does things. So this is something that we can use as we continue our board development. Anything else, Sarah? All right. Thank you. All right, that'll conclude our governance item, board purpose statement, and evaluation discussion. And do we have our guest? I don't see our guest here. Okay, we'll go ahead then and move on then to our next item on our agenda, 9C1, elementary school naming process.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Gearing. My name is Christina Hardy. I'm the Chief Communications Officer, and I'm here with you tonight to go over, just to provide more information and the opportunity for you to consider and discuss the school naming process for elementary school number 30. So as we all know that we've had the groundbreaking for this elementary school 30 back in May, and we are proposing and hopefully on schedule to be opened in August of 2024 in the southwest part of our district, right off of San Gabriel Parkway, north of Divine Lake. And with that, I'd like to outline a process and parameters for you to consider moving forward with the naming. This opening a school, it gives us a great opportunity to recognize places and people in our school district, and here is just one opportunity. So currently, if we take a look right now, there is local board policy for school naming. We have local policy CW, and because local policy exists, the authority lies with the governing board, which then can create the nomination process. So here in Leander ISD, we consider naming based on 5 different criteria. Number 1, historical and geographical site or community. 2, a deceased or significant individual. 3, local, state, or national historical event or place. 4, significant state or national figure. And 5, a person who has made a significant contribution to education here in the district. So again, the local policy will dictate that the authority lies with the Board of Trustees and its approval, and they will guide the nomination process. So this gave me the opportunity in preparation for this presentation to take a look at the 45 existing school building campuses, and this gave me the opportunity to just do a quick inventory audit of some of the names that already exist. So 18, starting with the top, and you can see we have 18 campuses that are named after a person who has made a significant contribution to the education in the district. We have 14 that are named after local, state, or national historic places or events. We have 9 that are named after historical or geographical sites or communities, and then 2 that are named after significant state or national figures, and then 2 deceased significant individuals. And why I wanted to show you this slide in particular, I think you can see here that Leander ISD places a high value on the people who make significant contributions to the district, as well as the local heritage and history of the area. Not to mention that the 2 folks that were deceased and have significant individuals that those campuses were named after also had a significant local impact on our school district. So this just gives you an overview of the names that are already existing. Looking now at the naming practices here in Central Texas, the following school districts have CW local policies and or administrative regulations tied to school naming. The school districts vary in size from big to small, but all of these 12 local school districts have some sort of regulations that are tied to them. So that gave me an opportunity to examine what criteria they have and take a look at their findings, see what's similar to what Leander ISD is doing. And through looking at those neighboring school districts, every school district that I researched, the decision lies with the Board of Trustees. And of the districts that have local policy, when reviewing that local policy, half of them state that they use some sort of naming committee. And lastly, most of the criteria aligns with Leander ISD's, with the exception of the following. We have 4 school districts that require the person's name to be deceased, and then Lake Travis ISD restricts names to geographic locations, and that's the only school district in the area that does that. All right, stop me if I'm going too fast. I have a tendency to speed up. Okay. All right. This is taking a look now at the Charter for Elementary School 29. So the charter laid out the criteria for committee members, its goals, and its parameters. Now, this is the first time in naming Elementary School 29, this was the first time we used a naming committee. All of what happened before 29 predates me, and from what I've been told, what was done in the past is the board would, SCR would create a nomination form, that form would get filled out, and then it would be up to the board to vet the names and then approve them. So by implementing this naming committee, it gave more voice to our community, as well as enabled a more transparent process when it came to, well, as if it wasn't transparent when the board considered it, but it gave a more open process for when we were considering the naming. So again, this is a process. We're starting early because we're getting a lot of folks who are anxious about Elementary School 30 for you to consider what we want to do next. So we really won't get started until September, with the hopes of naming a school probably around November or December. But this is just wanting to plant some seeds around some guidelines, some parameters that we want to use moving forward. Now, this is just for Elementary School 30, but here are some exciting things that I want you to consider. So we have a really grand opportunity right now. Because of the passage of Bond 2023, we actually have several facilities that could be named. Not just Elementary School 30, we also have 2 elementary schools that will be constructed, as well as a Science Materials Center, 18+ Transition Services Facility, a South Transportation Hub, and a Plant Services Warehouse. All of these can be involved in a robust process that includes more voice. We can add student voice and choice in some of that. We can envision something a little bit differently than what has been done before. So in considering all these 6 facilities, it prevents that idea of scarcity around this being just this one opportunity when this comes up. Now we're sort of demystifying a lot of the effort around the namings. So if we want to consider naming future facilities, why not take a look at naming opportunities for our existing facilities? And I'm not advocating that we change the name of Don 2-Pack, but what I wanted to show you there is the inconsistency. So we have a Don 2-Pack at Leander High School. We have a South Pack at Cedar Park High School. And even the name is a little bit misleading because you have a South Pack, but it's not really south. We consider south our southern portion of our district, which is south of 2222 on 620. And so giving this the opportunity to add naming to that, as well as our transportation centers, which are existing facilities, our North Transportation, our Central Transportation, and again, our proposed South Transportation facility that is also included on the bond for 2023. So again, I just kind of want to reiterate, this process is early, but because there's a lot to consider, and we can make this as narrow or as wide as you want. But again, I just wanted to give you the opportunity to discuss and give us feedback about how we want to proceed.
I love it. Board members.
One thing that I know at one time we had talked about, and something just to throw out there to board members, with one of the maybe performing arts centers, I can't remember where it is, I'm gonna go and look, but there was, it was in another district, it was called Memorial Center. And whenever there was an event there, you could choose from the different people. Like inside the area, when you walked in, there were different bricks from teachers and students and different people, and it was called the Memorial Performing or Memorial Center, like that. And we were there for a robotics tournament, and so it was at Memorial Center in honor of, and they, you know, went from looked at the memorial wall, and they picked someone who was a previous robotics teacher, coach in that district. And so I don't know, I think because there's always, and I say that just because this is a lot, but it's not a lot. Like, there's so many people that we want to honor. And, you know, I think like, oh, wow, this is great. There's a lot of opportunity to honor people here. But there's going to be more people that we want to honor, and when we're fully built out, then I hate to not be able to have some way to honor them. And so, you know, something like that I think would work well at a performing arts center, because there's different events there, and you know, it's a way to honor multiple people that have had significant contributions on our district.
And Gloria, was that memorial only, or was it also in recognition? Was it only for people who had passed away, or was it?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm going to try to find it. It was like years and years ago, but it was, I think it was in Dallas or Houston. I can't remember. It was a long time ago, but I'll look because I don't know.
Well, and I don't know as a board if we couldn't make it.
And we could make
memorial
it either
and
way we
recognition
wanted
if we
to,
wanted.
you know?
Right.
Yeah.
And so, looking at the most recent naming, and even I went back and researched some previous ones at the time, and I did see that there was use of petitions. How much weight do we want to give to people, to petitions, even though there's a form that goes out?
It looked like you were about to speak. From my experience and what I've read, petitions were sort of nullified. Petitions, the nomination process only involved the name being brought up. Petitions were not considered. That was most of the evidence that I had seen. But if y'all know differently, please share.
No, that's what you were saying. I was just going to speak for the last one because I know this, when we were on the board, it was really important to make sure it was transparent as possible and that community had a voice. And what I loved about the community committee that we have naming, a lot of them were in my neighborhood and were dead set on Bryson Hills. And I remember the individual sitting up there, and he's like, after talking to everybody and going over the community feedback, not petitions, not outside, it was actual community feedback through thought exchange. He was like, I changed my mind, it needs to be Carolyn North. And I thought that that process was honestly, as hard as it was for me to go against my neighborhood, what I loved about it was the community truly had a voice in the process. And I don't think they've ever had a voice like that in the process. So that's, I don't remember them looking at petitions.
I'll just chime in and say I do love the idea of the memorial thing that Gloria mentioned. I think that it gives an opportunity, especially for like a performing arts center, you know, if there's whatever the event is that's being held there, whether it's choir, band, whatever, theater, I mean, you know, choosing someone from that was special to that group or special to a parent or whatever, I think that's really smart. And I love the idea of it being, you know, the building itself is named something, but then at the same time, we're able to honor those folks? Because you're right, there's never going to be enough buildings.
And am I hearing memorial only, memorial recognition? What do y'all want?
I think I'd like to look into whatever. I think all options would be nice to have on the table.
And it was good that you came up with that. I would say it was basically a count of the different categories, because I do recall some previous conversations as to how we can enhance or modify the CW policy. And one question was, or a few thoughts that came up were along the lines of, do we want to restrict it to names of people who are no longer living, but now you see that we really have focused on, well, people have made a contribution, but I can't tell from that list if some of them were no longer living at the time that the nomination or the naming was done. But that was one of the big ones that kind of bubbled up to the top.
Yes, I think that what I have discovered is that there's not a lot of discretion about living or non-living with how these names have been considered. Yes, because it's hard to tell whether or not it was done posthumously. So I think the district has done a fair job of saying we don't really care whether or not they are living legacy or not. We will consider it if they made some sort of significant contribution to the district.
So when I'm thinking about next steps then, based on what I'm hearing board saying, it sounds like you need to get with policy just to make sure there's no changes or updates on policy. And then as soon as you get the okay with policy, if there aren't any changes, then you go to the next step. If there are changes, then we need policy to come back.
Yes.
And we'll talk about it as a board. Then the next step sounds like charter. So then we're going to need to do some type of charter that you're going to bring back to us.
Yes.
And either at that time, that can be the charter for that in all the facilities, or we just start with elementary 30 and then you work on some type of timeline. Again, this all depends on how these next conversations happen. And then the next step sounds like looking at then those other options of the memorial recognition, all options, and bring that. So it sounds like there's like maybe 3 waves or 4 waves here we're going through.
Sounds great, yes.
Okay, board members, did we capture all that discussion well? Is there something I'm missing in those?
I just want to add, if there's possible, when we bring the charter back, how can we incorporate those student voices? I think I'd like to see that piece and how it plays out. Because I know we did bring some of for Carolyn North, we had the students pick the 2 names, I believe, and the mascot, but I'd like to see them part of the process.
Yes.
See how we can incorporate that.
Sounds great.
All right, that goes ahead and concludes this agenda item then. And we'll move on to the next item. Under operations, C2, consider approval of 2023-2024 accelerated instruction budget.
Good members, Madam President, members of the board of trustees, Dr. Gearing, sorry. One of the requirements before we adopt a budget is to ensure that we have money set aside for accelerated instruction or for those students who are deemed at risk of dropping out. And there's a calculation on that, and so I just want to come up here and have the board approve tonight that yes, we have money set aside in the amount of $295,043 into the 23-24 budget, which is up for adoption later this evening. These monies have been set aside in accordance with House Bill 5, so we are in compliance with that in the budget.
And so we need a motion on that this evening. So if there aren't any questions, we need a motion.
I move that the Board of Trustees approve $295,043 of the 2023-2024 proposed budget to be utilized for additional accelerated instruction in the 2023-2024 school year to comply with the requirements of HB 5 from the 83rd legislative session.
I second.
Okay, I have a motion from Christine, second from Francesca. All those in favor, please raise your hand. 7 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Thank you. Pete, we're going to go ahead and put a pause. We have a closed session we need to get ready for and a break. So we'll you take your break, but we're also getting ready to move into, we are going to go ahead and move into, it's 8:03, to closed session for purposes permitted by Texas Government Code 551.071, consultation with attorney regarding pending or contemplated litigation and or attorney-client privilege matter. Texas Government Code 551.071, consider next litigation options regarding second access road to Vandergrift High School. There will be no action taken in closed. We will come back out to open for any action. Board members, community audience, it is 8:47. We are back in open session, and we are going to take our next item up, operations. Consider adoption of the 2023-2024 budget.
Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Gearing, we have conducted our public hearing for the budget. We have gone through the whole process. Are there any questions or comments on the budget that we have brought before this evening?
Board members, if there are no questions, I need a motion.
I move that the Board of Trustees adopt the 2023-2024 General Fund, Child Nutrition, and Debt Service Fund budgets as presented.
I second.
I have a motion from Christine, second from Anna. Board members, are there any questions? All right. All those in favor, please raise your hand. 7 ayes, no nays, motion carries. We'll move on to our next agenda item. Consider approval of a resolution committing and assigning fund balance.
As I mentioned earlier in the public hearing going over the budget, in the current 22-23 school year, we adopted a budget with a $25 million deficit. As we approach the end of this year, we estimated about $10.6 million in revenues exceeding our expenditures. We went to the board last week, and we did not commit, but we transferred a portion of that excess funds over to some funds. As part of that, or the next level of that, is to commit some of our fund balance. So we're coming to the board tonight to commit 2 portions of fund balance. We already have $2 million set aside. We are asking to set aside $10 million of that for health insurance needs, or health care, for our self-funded health care fund, and then $20 million for future construction. So these are funds that we are still part of the fund balance. We are just, the board by board action is committing them in case of that need. If we were ever to need those funds, it would have to come back to the board and get board approval prior to that being done. But it's just on our audit, it will be marked as committed fund balance. And then we are actually asking you to unassign the $31 million or $30 million that we had done last year prior to the Vader election. And now that had a successful Vader election, we are asking to unassign that.
And I thought I saw it on here. Now I don't see it. The COVID, we used to have a COVID amount that was, I guess we said we anticipated so much. We don't have that anymore. Is that correct? In our fund balance marked?
I will check on that. It does not sound familiar to me, but I will check.
All right. And just in a Friday memo, if we can just get an
Yes.
update then on what's assigned and unassigned.
Yeah, I believe it is assigned. I just put down what we're unassigning. I didn't put all the list of assignments, but I will get that exact amount for you.
And so I had gone back. But yeah, if we can just keep that update, that's great. And this is great. So this is just talking then. We have our numbers then of what we are now assigning new and what we're unassigning. All right. Board members, any questions? Otherwise, we need a motion. Motion this time, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I move that the Board of Trustees approve the resolution committing and assigning a fund balance as presented.
I second.
I have a motion from Christine, second from Francesca. Any other questions? All those in favor, please raise your hand. 7 ayes, no nays, motion carries. We'll move on to consider approval of the 2022-2023 final budget amendments.
Good evening, board. Tonight we bring you a copy, or our final amendment for the 22-23 school year. And so this is an amendment. I want to just kind of walk you briefly through a couple items on here that are maybe a little bit unique. Most of the items in this are just moving money within function to make sure that we have the cushions, because the way the auditor looks at it is, do you have the funds budgeted? A couple of things. The last 2 bullets, the second to last bullet, we have received confirmation from the Comptroller's office, and that information has been sent to the Texas Education Agency for a 2021 property value appeal. That was successful. It is anticipated that the state will rerun the number and update their summary of finance final amount with the new property value amount for 2021, and that will result us in an increase in funding of $1.4 million, and we should get that by the end of August. So we are increasing revenue by that amount. The last bullet, I do want to just kind of walk you through because it's a little unique and may look a little funny from the outset. What we're doing is we are increasing the budgeted expenditures by a little over $6 million. Now, normally, this would be funds, budget monies that we would take from Function 11 or another 11 that had excess funds. These expenses are already in Function 11, most of the others. These are for the new GASB 96. For any time we enter to a lease, anytime, especially technology leases, that now they want us to account for those in Function 71 and not in, normally if it was done at an instructional level or on a campus, it would be done in Function 11. And so we don't have the exact amount of what those are. And so we will get that done before the audit is complete. But in order to make sure we did not move monies over to Function 71 and not have the appropriate monies budgeted, we just moved the max amount we knew it would be, this little over $6 million, over to Function 71, which on paper looks like it's going to be decrease the fund balance, but it doesn't change any of our expenditures. So at the end of the year, when it all, final revenues, final expenditures, will all equal out to be the same. But we're just moving monies over on the budget piece, just to make sure we're covered. So it's unique. It's not a normal piece of a end of the year budget amendment. So I just wanted to walk you through that and explain it because it does look a little different.
Thank you very much. Board members, if there aren't any questions, this is another item that's posted for action this evening.
I move that the Board of Trustees approve the final budget amendment for the general operating, debt service, and child nutrition funds for the 2022-2023 as presented.
A second.
I have a motion from Christine, second from Francesca. All those in favor, please raise your hand. 7 ayes, no nays, motion carries. We'll move on to the business and finance monthly reports. Pete, what is interesting or things that we should definitely be paying attention to in those?
These are the end of the year reports, or mainly through May. Most of these are fairly, nothing really out of the ordinary, except I do want to bring one point to the last one, or at least the last one in my pile, which is the monthly tax collection report. You may notice that we are a little over 1.2% lower than we have been in years past in our current tax collections. There's a couple of things I just want to bring to your mind. We've asked the CADs about this, and there's a couple of things to explain why this is the case. Legislation was passed in the last year or two, that has allowed taxpayers, which is great for taxpayers, but allows them to file later for homestead exemptions. And so a lot of those are being filed at a later time. And so that's showing up as more refunds and more returns. And then also, there's probably a decent amount that could be the economy of people having to maybe struggle to pay some of their taxes, or at least go put on payment plans, and so those monies aren't coming in. It really shouldn't affect our budget per se, but just wanted to let you know that we're more than 1% off of normal this time last year. And typically we do 99% or a little bit higher. And we're at 98.24, so we're a little bit behind that right now. But I just wanted to point that out, that we are aware of it. We have talked to the appraisal districts and the county to collect the taxes, and just to make sure that we are on top of that. So I didn't want it to think that we weren't paying attention to that as well. So.
And also on our monthly bond status report, it appears that we don't have, of course, any of the new updated items on our bond yet. When do you anticipate that'll start being reflected in our spreadsheets?
They were working on that this afternoon because we did pass the reimbursement resolution last week. That process is in the process of being put into the accounting Munis system. Jimmy is making sure that we are working on that because they are ready to start some of those projects. But yes, we should begin having those reports either July or August.
Board members, on those items, then please reach out if you need additional. We used to have construction updates. We don't have those on our regular agendas. As things progress, please reach out to Bruce if you need changes to how we handle our agenda in that area. All right. Any other items here? Questions? Okay. Well, then that concludes our business for our consent agenda. No, not consent agenda. Discussion action items. We're moving along. Yeah, took us backwards there. Board members, there is our debrief here that's up on item number 12. I'll just point that out to you. That's, again, where you can talk to us about continuous improvement. And Other than that, we will be going into closed session. It is 8:57, and for purposes permitted by Texas Government Code 55071, consultation with attorney regarding pending or contemplated litigation and our attorney-client privilege matter. Texas Government Code 551.074, personnel to deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, and duties of a public officer or employee. Texas Government Code 551.0821, deliberation regarding matters whereby personally identifiable information regarding one or more students will be disclosed. And Texas Government Code 551.074, personnel, the reorganization of the Board of Trustees. There will be no action taken in closed. We will come all out to open for any action. Board members, it is 9:18 p.m. and we are now in open session. I move to nominate Gloria Gonzalez de Lucia as president of the Leander ISD Board of Trustees. I move to nominate Anna Smith as vice president of the Leander ISD Board of Trustees. And I move to nominate Christine Maurer as secretary of the Leander ISD Board of Trustees. Is there a second?
I second.
I have a motion from Trish, a second from Francesca. All those in favor, please raise your hand. I have 6 ayes. Any nays? 1 nay. Motion carries. Congratulations, officers. There are no other agenda items before us. So, my last time to do this, it is 9:19 and we are now adjourned.